So good morning once again. Thank you for coming today for our classes. We will finish this worksheet today up to the end of our lesson, up to Altman Z. And then I'd like to remind you of your quiz this coming Tuesday, 7:30. It will be a synchronous quiz, so you will have to be here. Okay, and then I'll be giving instructions. And then at the end of the period, I'll be collecting the exams. Okay, so we were looking at the different ratios, and I requested you to answer the ratios. We'll just compare notes and analyze them so that we will be able to finish everything. We said that we are looking at 5 different major types of ratios: liquidity, asset management, the debt ratio, profitability, and market value ratios. Now, recall, guys, that you don't just look at the number. Okay, for example, if you go to the income statement, we don't just look at the net income and say that a company A is performing better than company B because it has a bigger or a greater net income. Okay, we can only say that company A has a bigger net income than company B. But as to whether company A performed better than company B, that's another matter. We have to look at it, guys. We have to look at it and benchmark it over time. And of course, benchmark it against the competitor, and not use just absolute values, but rather use ratios. And how do we interpret ratios? We take note of the formulas. Okay? Look at the formulas and then be sure to understand how to interpret this. So last time we were looking at liquidity ratios, and we say that current ratio allows us to determine or to evaluate whether a company has the capability to pay its current obligations as they fall due. The higher the current ratio numerically says that the company is more capable of paying its creditors as they fall due, current obligations. Now, we don't just stop at the current ratio. We look at the nature of the current assets. So we use a more stringent measure called quick ratio or acid test ratio, which only includes cash, marketable securities, and receivables divided by current liabilities. So this one, for example, the 0.5 here indicates that for every peso of current liability that will become due, the company has 0.5 50 centavos of quick assets to pay its current obligations. Okay, so that's not enough because we say that we excluded here inventory and prepayments because they're not really that liquid. Okay, so and then we look at it over time. In fact, we say that it decreased in 2019 and increased back in 2020. However, we pale in comparison to the competitor. Okay, so that's how we looked at the liquidity ratios. Then we started looking at the inventory ratios. Okay, inventory ratios are very important. I'm sorry, the asset management ratios are important because it tells us how capable, how efficient the firm is in managing its assets, particularly its current assets and its fixed assets. Okay, so we looked at inventory turnover, and we said that this counts the number of times a company is able to purchase raw materials, convert to finished product, and then sell. And particularly, that's the scenario for a manufacturing company. Okay, and then we said that it was 5 in 2019. It was 5 times, so better than 2018. However, it went down in 2020. And to make matters worse, in 2020, the competitor had a 6.1 times of ITO, inventory turnover. Now that's critical because we said that we illustrated this. Okay, so this is our competitor, and it's able to do that process, the turnover of the inventory 6.1 times as vis-a-vis the 3.9 times we are able to do it. Okay, so as I said, this is very critical because our competitor is able to turn around its inventory much faster than we can, and that translates into huge differences in particular to sales, okay, to in particular sales, okay, in generating sales. Okay, then also we looked at ARTO. ARTO is accounts receivable turnover. It tells us how from sales, how many times from sales to collection, okay, is the company able to do this turnover? So from 9.8, 11.9 to 9.3, it went down in 2020 to 9.3. It means that in a particular year, the company is able to collect on their receivables 9.3 times. So from sales to collection, that's 9.3 times, vis-a-vis their competitor at 10.2 times. So their competitor is more able to collect on their receivables on a faster rate. Okay, and then the APTO, okay, for ITO and ARTO, the higher, the better. For APTO, on the other hand, technically the lower, the better, because it tells us of the number of times we pay on our accounts, okay, particularly our trade payables. And the lower means that it takes us more days to pay our suppliers. The implication of which is that perhaps we're given a higher or longer credit terms. Okay, so for our company, it was paying its suppliers 17 times a year. Okay, from purchase of the raw material up to payment. Okay, purchase on account and then payment, that's 17 times. It was worse in 2019. It was 21 times a year. But our competitor is only doing this 15 times, which makes it better than how we are performing. Now, these three ratios, ITO, ARTO, APTO, is equivalent to this, albeit in days. Okay, so they're equivalent. ITO and DIO. DIO is days sales outstanding. Well, let me just put here outstanding. Or this is also average inventory period. So that's average inventory period. Okay, so maybe I'll write it here also, average inventory period, AIP. This one is average collection period and average payment period. Okay, so what does this mean? This is equivalent to ITO. The 3.9 times per year is equivalent to 95 days. It means that it takes the company on the average 95 days to buy raw materials, convert into finished product, and then sell. Okay, that's 95 days. That's equivalent to 3.9 times. How did we compute for this? Well, we divided the operating days. How many days a year is the company operating, divided by the ITO. So once again, guys, these two are related. Okay, so we're doing it 3.9 times a year. Our competitor is doing it 6.1 times a year. And the implication is that it takes us on the average 95 days to convert to finished products and then sell, while our competitor on the average takes only 60 days. So we are being swamped by the competitor. By the 60th day, guys, they're able to already sell their finished goods, while it takes us 95 days. So how can we compete with this kind of a performance? So this begs the question: why is our direct competitor, why is our closest rival able to sell their goods in 60 days, while it takes us 95 days? So this begs an analysis, or a critical analysis from the managers of the company to analyze their operations. Is it because it takes them a long time to source their raw materials? Is it because they're having it takes them a long time to convert to finished products? Is it because their sales, their marketing is not good? Okay, so a lot of questions can be answered here. A lot of questions has to be critically analyzed here. If the company is will expect to survive in this kind of a very stiff competitive environment, then these ratios indeed tell a story. So that's one important function of a ratio. It tells a story about how the company is performing its operations. And if it's like this, guys, then if we're the managers, it begs already the question, anong gagawin natin? Bakit 95 days tayo, sila 60 days? So kailangan, ano bang equipment ang ginagamit nila? May top of the line ba sila na equipment, cutting edge equipment na hindi tayo nag-i-invest doon? If not, guys, what are we waiting for? Okay? If we want to slowly be eaten up in the industry, then the best thing that we can do is do nothing. No? Kung gusto natin kainin dun sa industriya na yan. Pero if we want to give ourselves a fighting chance, then really understand what this means. Also, related to ARTO, 9.3 times is, ang equivalent nito is yung days sales outstanding. Let me write that. Days sales outstanding. Okay? Days sales outstanding. So 39, no? 39 yung ano? 39 days it takes the company from selling the goods to collecting the selling the goods on account to collection, 39 days, while our competitor does it 15 days. So what could be the cause of this? Masyado bang long terms yung yung long binibigay natin na terms? Okay, or hindi magaling yung collection collection department? Okay, hindi magaling yung pag-follow up ng or may mga policies ba tayo na ginagawa na hindi maganda, or hindi ba tayo tumatanggap ng post-dated check para may assurance tayo na andyan na yung check dated at the time na dapat ng customers natin magbayad. So again, a lot of questions here kasi si competitor natin 15 days tayo 39 days. Okay, and then lastly, guys, itong APTO, accounts payable turnover, or this is the days payable outstanding. Days payable outstanding. It's taking us, guys, takes us 22 days lang. Yung competitor natin 90 days. In a sense, guys, sabi ko nga, yung 51.1 times, which is lower, is better kasi it translates into a longer term for us to pay. 90 days, no? Tayo 22 days lang. So siguro mas magaling maghagal itong competitor natin siguro mas maganda yung track record nila ng payment kaya they're being given a longer period. Tapos tayo 22 days siguro we reneged on payment promised payments before. Siguro hindi natin nagawa. Naging careless tayo sa pag-monitor ng payment. So hindi na tayo masyadong binibigyan ng magandang terms. So these things, guys, these things. So that can only be answered by really analyzing what's really happening. Okay, and then this leads us into these two important measures, itong operating cycle and cash conversion cycle. So let me explain this. Ang formula ng operating cycle is DIO plus DSO. Okay, tayo 134, si competitor 75. Okay, and then cash conversion cycle, which is DIO plus DSO minus DPO, tayo 112, sila negative 15. Now this is interesting. Okay, so let's analyze this. Let's first look at the operating cycle, 134 minus and 75. Sige, let me draw that. Okay, so here, so let's take a look first at our competitor, 75, tayo 134. Okay, so here is our competitor. Okay. So ang tinitingnan natin operating cycle, which is equal to days inventory outstanding plus days sales outstanding. And for the company, for the competitor, this is 75 days. Yung total niya. So what does that mean? So the average time, the average days it takes the company to buy raw materials, okay, buy raw materials, convert to finished product, sell on account, and then collect. That's 75 days. So 75 days to. No? Ang tawag dyan guys, cash to cash cycle. Cash to cash cycle or operating cycle. Bakit cash to cash cycle? Okay, may assumption tayo dito na some of the raw materials are paid for in cash. So may cash out yan. Tapos pagdating dito, diba, na-convert to finished product, na-benta, na-collect. So balik na sa cash. So cash out, cash in. That's called your cash to cash cycle. And it takes the company 75 days. Pause muna ako, may question yata. Okay, mamaya na lang, Christian, ha? Okay, so bali on the average, guys, how many times a year to nangyayari? So that's equal to, di ba, offer days. Offer days divided by yung ilang ano to? Ilang days? 75, no? Divide by 75. Okay, so this happens 4.87 times a year. So convert lang natin, parang reverse lang natin. Ilang times nagagawa ni company to? 4.87. So 1, 2, 3, 4, then you have here 87.87 times. So 75 days, 75 days, 75 days, 75 days, and a fraction of that. Okay, so again guys, in 75 days, nakolekta na. From the buying of the raw materials to converting them, manufacturing them into finished goods, and then selling them, and then collecting, 75 days. Okay, while on the other hand, tayo, yung company natin, si XYZ, okay, let's compare the operating cycle or the cash to cash cycle. Tayo, ilan tayo? How many days tayo? Okay, copy ko lang. It takes us equal to 134, di ba? 134 days. Yan. Takes us 134 days. And how many times a year yan? So offer days divided by 134. So that's only 2.73 times a year. So let's illustrate that. So di ba? Ito, 134 days. 1, 2, and then 0.73. Sorry for the proportional na drawing. 134 days. 134. Okay. So if you take a look at this, no, si competitor by the 70th day, nakolekta na. Eh tayo wala pa. Malayo pa tayo sa katotohanan. Dito pa natin makokolekta. So in terms of asset management, guys, we're being swamped by the competitor. Ang layo, 134 days yung ano natin, yung operating cycle. Okay, so let me write that here. Our operating cycle, which is equal to, ano yung DIO natin? Lagay ko na lang dito. Days inventory outstanding is 95 and then 39. 95 plus 39. That's 134 days. Ganun katagal guys na ma-process at saka makolekta ng company natin. Vis-a-vis 75 days ng competitor. So in that regard guys, we're really beaten black and blue by the competitor. Ang layo ng performance natin. So again guys, this begs the question, ano nangyayari? What's happening? Is it due to outmoded na equipment? So if it of course begs the question, kailangan malaman natin yung reason kung bakit talong-talo tayo ng competitor. Okay? And then let's take a look at cash conversion cycle 112 versus -15, which is DIO plus DSO minus DPO. So let's take a look at this. Illustrate lang natin si cash conversion cycle. Okay, so si company, si competitor, cash conversion cycle. Conversion cycle. Which is, diba, DIO plus DSO minus DPO. Or this is simply your operating cycle kasi operating cycle to minus DPO. Okay, this is 75 minus 90. 19 DPO nila. So we have a result of negative 15. Okay, ano ibig sabihin ng negative 15 na yan? So illustrate natin dito. This is our yung OC natin, ito, operating cycle ton. Operating cycle equals 75. And then DPO natin ito. DPO equals 90. So when we subtract this, 75 minus 90, this gives us a value equal to negative 15. Okay, ano ibig sabihin ng negative 15? Ibig sabihin yan, guys, that we already have the cash here. Na-collect na natin yung receivables natin on the 75th day. Tapos magbabayad tayo sa supplier natin on the 90th day. Therefore, a negative 15 cash conversion cycle indicates that we have 15 days in order to use our cash for other purposes muna. You can maybe kung merong 15 day na naka-deposit muna kung sa where we can earn interest from that kahit 15 days lang yan. So a negative cash conversion cycle means mas matagal pa natin muna bago bayaran yung supplier compared to nakolekta na natin yung receivables natin. So in a sense, guys, this is very positive. This is very good. Kasi wala pa, hindi pa natin babayaran yung supplier natin. May time pa tayo. Malaki pa yung time natin para gamitin yon, put it in short-term investments perhaps or whatever. Magamit natin yung pambayad natin dun sa payable natin kasi nakolekta na natin yung cash natin. Okay, compare that with how we are performing. Okay, ano yung natin? Ano yung days payable outstanding natin? 22, di ba? Ito yung DPO natin. Tapos ano yung operating cycle natin? Our operating cycle is 134. Okay, sorry for the disproportionate plotting of this. So let me just fix this a bit para mas pronounced. So this is 22 DPO. Okay, this is OC, operating cycle. So when we subtract 134 minus 22, ito yan. So this is our cash conversion cycle, which is 112. 112 days positive. So ano ibig sabihin ng positive na cash conversion cycle? Okay, so dito babayaran na natin yung yung payable natin, no? Kaso saan pa natin makokolekta yan? Okay. Pardon the disproportionality of the drawing. So 134 yung operating cycle natin. 22 days yung days payable outstanding. We have a cash conversion cycle equal to 112. Ano implication yan? Ang ibig sabihin yan, guys, kailangan magbayad na natin dito. Kailan pa natin makukuha yung cash? Technically on the average dito pa. So we will have to borrow this. Borrow yung payable natin. Okay? For how long? For 112 days bago natin mabayaran. So dito hihiram tayo para mabayaran yung payable and then pay back dun sa hiniram natin after 112 days. So the cash conversion cycle is the number of days we will have to finance the payment of our payables. No? So the larger the cash conversion cycle, the worse of the company is kasi di ba, directly related yung interest dun sa number of days. So pag mas malaki yung number of days ng cash conversion cycle, then mas malaki yung interest na babayaran natin. Okay, so of course, a shorter cash conversion cycle is ideal kasi ibig sabihin, mas konti lang yung ipapa-finance natin. And the negative naman, ito na yung talagang maganda. No? Okay, so this tells us a lot, guys, about the performance of the firm. Talong-talo tayo ng competitor natin kasi sila ang cash conversion cycle nila negative. Which brings to mind, guys, there's a company na ganito yung business model nila, no? But carried to an extreme. I'll explain why. Would you know of a company where usually ang cash conversion cycle niya talagang negative, malalaking negative? Any idea, guys, of I have friends who used to do business in that. Alam niyo yung company na yan, guys. Kaso kailangan mahaba yung PC mo dyan eh. Okay, kasi they pay their itong DPO nila mahaba, no? Days payable outstanding bago nila binabayaran yung mga suppliers nila o yung mga customers nila. So anong nangyayari, because napakalaki ng DPO nila, no? Malaki yung negative yung cash conversion cycle nila. Okay, would you know kung anong company yun? 2 letters lang. Alam niyo yung company niyan, guys. Bago mag-lockdown, siguro madalas din tayo pumunta doon to buy stuff. Pero this company is not really a retail company. No? Ang pinaka-focus niya talaga is real estate. Yes? Okay, so yeah, correct. No? Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Hans. It's SM. So si SM, if you take a look at their cash conversion cycle, it's a negative. No? Negative. Bakit kaya ganun? Kasi operating cycle nila, yung collection nila, mabilis. Tapos yung payment nila, mahaba. So it takes them a long time to pay their customers. Okay, yung mga tenants nila. Kasi yung mga cashier doon sa mga tenants nila, sa kanila yun eh. Okay? So collection sa kanila tapos may percentage kasi sila doon. And then it takes them quite some time to pay their So anong nangyayari diyan, guys? So matagal nila bago na kailangan mahaba yung PC mo sa business. Yung friend ko, guys, who did that before, hindi niya kinayanan eh. Kaya lumipat siya sa Robinsons na medyo mas rational, mas for him mas reasonable yung terms, no? So imagine, guys, kung ang cash conversion cycle natin, okay, if our cash conversion cycle is, let me write that. If it's okay, I have to hurry up a bit kasi medyo kinukulang na tayo sa oras. Negative 180. Okay. If it's negative 180, ano ibig sabihin yan? Meron tayong 180 days pa muna to use the cash. Mapapasok mo sa T-bills yan, no? Bago natin babayaran yung ating Now, what could be the downside of this? May downside ba yan? Anyone? May downside kaya yung negative na 180 na cash conversion cycle? Well, the downside of that, guys, is is a customer side natin. Okay lang sa atin yung 180, pero paano sila? No? So it now becomes a push system. Okay, it's not parang hindi na symbiotic yung relationship niya. Parang tayo na lang nakikinabang tapos nahihirapan sila. So that might not be a good also working environment as far as, diba kasi kung stakeholder theory to, stakeholders din yung suppliers natin. And we would want our suppliers to also succeed, no? We want them to succeed kasi at stake din yung at stake din yung life ng company kung mawawala din yung mga suppliers. So that could be maybe a short-sightedness on the part of the company kung masyadong Kasi bakit nangyayari ito? Kasi yung iba, sabi nila, I want to be part of that company. I want to be a supplier of that company. So, syempre, pag may malaking bargaining power ng companies, sabi nila, okay, willing ba kayo na magbigay sa amin ng terms ng 180 days? kalahating taon. That's parang kapit sa kapit sa patalin na rin para maging you will have a place there in their establishment. Okay, so that can be this can have a downside, guys. No? This can have a downside. So although it brings in some positive results for the company, kailangan din titingnan ng company na kung masyadong malaki na to. How big is big? That's relative. Okay, but 180 days on the average, let's say a DPO that's more than 180 days, parang ano na yata yun, parang masyado na natin tinetake advantage yung suppliers natin. Okay? So these things, kailangan meron pa rin dyan yung soul ng corporation na hindi lang dapat siya yung kumita, but also their stakeholders. No? So this brings now the stakeholder theory into play. Kung ang dapat ba nagbe-benefit lang yung shareholders, or there are other stakeholders that should be taken into consideration of. Okay, so questions, guys? Clear ba so far tong ano natin? ITO, RTO, APTO, DIO, DSO, DPO, operating cycle, and cash conversion cycle. Is that clear? Paki-chat nga please kung clear siya so far. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Wala namang questions? Thank you. Okay. So food for thought natin, guys, yung cash conversion cycle na yan. Ha? Although a negative cash conversion cycle is good for the company, but again, take it with caution, no? And be aware of the stakeholder theory. No? Kasi pag masyadong malaki negative na yan, something might not be right already. No? Baka masyado natin tinitikis yung ating mga suppliers and demanding that we be given such very, very long terms. No? E paano din sila, kailangan din nila ng cash, guys. They also need cash to survive in their business. Okay, how about FATO and TATO? Ang FATO, guys, sorry, may mali ako sa formula na nabigay sa inyo. No? Nalagay ko yata dito net income after tax. It should not be net income after tax. It should be sales. So kindly correct it, guys. And then, take note, guys, yung numerator natin sales, tapos yung denominator natin fixed assets. So you have income statement at saka balance sheet na account. Usually, pag ganyan yung ratios, guys, ang ginagawa natin, kasi si sales, period yan, no, for one whole year. Si average fixed assets, usually, kasi balance sheet yan, point in time lang yan, kunyari as of December 31. So it's better that instead of just using December 31 figure, to get the average para meron tayong beginning at saka ending. So that's the usual practice. No? Kinukuha natin yung average ng FA. Ganun din dito sa TATO. Okay, turnover to, guys. You notice, pag nagte-turnover tayo, kung ano man yung tina-turnover natin, siya yung nagiging denominator. Like this, fixed asset turnover. So, ang divisor natin si fixed asset. TATO, total asset turnover, ang divisor natin is total assets. Okay, so we just, ang formula ko dito is simply, okay, so this is sales divided by the average of your fixed assets. Okay, wala tayong 2017 pero pwede pa rin natin makuha yung formula na yan. No? Okay, so ibig sabihin ng 9.95, okay, ano ibig sabihin yan? For every peso of fixed assets, nakakapag-generate tayo ng sales na 9.95. Again, we take a look at it across time. Bumaba tayo, no? Nag-deteriorate yung performance ng company over time kasi dito 7.92 na lang sales na per fixed assets, no? But in terms of comparing it with the competitor, we fare better in terms of productivity with respect to fixed assets. Pero in terms of total assets, talo tayo ng competitor. No? So 2.34, ibig sabihin nito, 2.34 peso of sales for every peso of total assets. Then it improved and then it went down into 2020. So comparing 2020 with the competitor, we perform less, no? Okay? So pero pag fixed asset, mas okay tayo. Pag total asset, mas mababa tayo. Ibig sabihin guys, ano implication nito? Ang implication nito guys, sa working capital, sa current assets, talo tayo. Kasi ang total assets lang naman, fixed asset at saka current assets. Talo natin si competitor in terms of fixed assets, no? Pero talo tayo in terms of current assets, no, performance. In fact, kita dito yan, no? Sa mga turnover natin sa inventory, sa receivables, kita natin dito yan. Okay, so consistent siya with the TATO. Okay? So, those in a nutshell guys are our asset management ratios. So again, you notice what do we do here? We benchmark over time, and also we benchmark against our direct competitor. Okay? So now we go to my questions guys sa asset management. Okay. OC is about collections po. And cash conversion cycle is about everything, no? Comparing your collections and the payment. Kasi ang cash conversion cycle is, Roy, ang cash conversion cycle is the operating cycle which talks about collections, diba? Minus the DPO which is about payment. So ano to, mas broad tong CCC. It takes into account the collections, okay, operating cycle, and the payment which is the DPO. Okay, so pareho. Si CCC hindi lang payment. Okay, so again, back to our formula here. Kasi di ba tingnan natin si cash conversion cycle, ba? It's operating cycle minus DPO. So we're looking at both, no? Collections and payment. Okay? All right. Thank you for your question, Roy. All right. So any more questions about our asset management ratios? Okay, guys, inaano ko lang yung time natin kasi we need to discuss everything here. No? Okay, no questions? Sige, let's go to the debt ratio. Okay, tatlo tong debt ratio na tinitingnan natin. Yung debt ratio, guys, alam natin na it talks about the balance of debt and equity, no, of investment by creditors and shareholders. So ito, alam natin naman guys, na discuss natin may value yung debt, no? A company that makes use debt optimally is a company that performs well. Kasi sabi natin, first and foremost, kung may magandang project, may magandang investment, tapos walang sufficient na funds yung company, then it has the option to borrow, no? To borrow to finance the project. Okay? Pero may certain limit din guys, no? Yung debt ratio. Kasi pag medyo highly leveraged na yung company, mahirap na yun kasi it means a lot of interest, no? Malaki na yung interest pag very highly leveraged na, and the company might not be able to pay the interests, no? So may ano din yan, the company has to what we call, a company has to have the optimal mix, no? One that maximizes shareholder wealth. Yun ang kailangan ng hanapin nila, yung level na yun. Okay? So, nung 2018, so ano lang to, di ba? Total assets, debt ratio is total liabilities divided by total assets. So, ang total liabilities natin is simply your total current liabilities at saka yung long-term debt. Okay, so that's the ratio. 54, ibig sabihin sa bawat piso ng asset, 54 centavos doon, 55 centavos is being financed by debt. So, nung 2018, 2019 para lumaki siya, naging 80%. And that's attributable to, kung titingnan kasi natin dito, long-term debt nag-increase, no? Naging 1 million. From 323, naging 1 million siya. So, there was huge borrowing nung 2019, kaya lumaki siya. And then, it went down to 43% nung 2020 kasi nagbayad dito ng principal din. If you take a look at our long-term debt, no, from 1 million, naging 500,000. So, nagbayad siya. Okay, so, all right. So, medyo erratic yung movement ng ng debt ratio niya. Okay? And then in competitor niya 50%. So is it better than the 43.8%? We cannot answer that, guys, kasi bawat company may kanya-kanya silang capital structure. Okay? So we can just say that the competitor has a higher debt ratio in 2020 as compared to our company. No? Hindi natin masasabi na better tong 50% kasi it's really about maximizing shareholder value. So the optimal capital structure will be different for any company. No? Okay, so how about times interest earned? Ang times interest earned naman, again, useful, guys, yung titinan natin lagi yung formula. No? It's EBIT over interest expense, which means whatever ratio we get here, 6.2, for example, sa competitor, it means sa bawat piso ng interest expense na meron yung company, meron siyang 6.2 pesos para bayaran yung interest expense. Kasi di ba, remember, saan ba nanggagaling yung pagbayad sa interest expense? Sa EBIT. Kasi EBIT is earnings before interest and taxes. So the higher the TI times interest earned, the more capable is the company in paying its interest expense. So 3.35 dito bumaba talaga, no? Noong 2019 kasi ang laki, 'di ba? Malaki yung operating cost dito, no? Ang liit na lang ng EBIT. So why don't we review that? Kung titingnan natin EBIT dito, no? Here. Lumaki yung interest dito, no? Kasi malaki yung utang natin. Tapos lumiit pa yung EBIT. So kaya ang liit ng ng coverage niya, no? Ang liit ng TI, 17,440 divided by 176. Compare that with 2020. Lumaki yung sales dito, lumiit yung cost ratio, no? So lumaki yung operating profit margin natin. Tapos lumiit din yung interest expense. So mas malaki yung TI natin times interest earned noong 2020 compared to 2019. Okay? So mas okay yung times interest earned natin noong 2020. So it's 6.28. In fact, mas okay pa tayo compared to our competitor. 6.2 si competitor, tayo 6.28. Okay, we're a bit more capable of servicing interest payments. No? Okay, so dito talaga noong 2019 talagang medyo ang sama ng performance ng company dito. Okay, noong 2020 okay lang kasi 3.35 pesos available to pay a peso of interest expense. Okay, we go to another measure for debt ratio is EBITDA coverage. Ito naman, ang kaibahan nila na iba yung yung numerator naging EBITDA na, hindi EBIT. So this is a broader way to measure capability to pay interest and principal and lease kung meron. Sa example natin dito, walang lease payments. Okay, dalawang klaseng lease, operating lease and financing lease. But we're not going to talk about that, no? That will be reserved later on sa college, no? Yung higher accounting or finance subject. But this is the formula. Okay, so walang lease. So disregard natin yung lease dito. Pero yung numerator natin, EBITDA. So EBITDA is simply your EBIT and then add back depreciation and amortization. Now, ang denominator natin, ang gusto natin malaman kung kaya bang bayaran ng company yung interest and the principal. So hindi lang yung mga interest, pati principal. So that's what EBITDA coverage tells us. So meron akong notes dyan, guys. Kindly read that, no, for further explanation. Okay, so how do you compute this? Okay, so kailangan natin yung interest at saka principal. Pero dapat tingnan natin, okay, so how do we compute EBITDA coverage for 2018 muna? No? So sa 2018, titingnan natin, guys, kung kailan bumaba yung yung long-term debt, no? Kasi ito ang sinasabi, di ba? Ano yung formula? Ang denominator, interest plus principal. So kailan nagbayad ng principal? So we will look at that in terms of long-term debt. So sa long-term debt, sa 2018, hindi naman natin ma-compare sa 2017 kasi wala tayong 2017 na figure. So we will just assume na walang principal payments noong 2018. Pero of course, merong interest expense na meron tayo dito. Yan, interest expense meron. So meron tayong denominator na 62,500. Now in 2019, ano nangyari? Okay, ang 2019 long-term debt increased from 323 to 1 million. Ibig sabihin nun, nangutang pa tayo. So walang ang assumption natin dito, hindi tayo nagbayad ng principal. Okay? So for 2019, there was no principal payments. So yung denominator natin, interest lang din, walang principal, no? Okay, and lastly, ito, 2020, what happened to long-term debt? From 1 million, naging 500,000. Ergo, guys, may binayaran tayong principal. So sa 2020, mababago yung natin dito. Yung denominator natin will become interest, which is this one, 80,000, plus the principal payment, which is kung magkano principal ang binayad. Magkano principal ang binayad, guys? Well, it's a difference. No? 1 million, naging 500,000 na lang yung long-term debt natin. Ibig sabihin, nagbayad tayo ng principal na 500. Therefore, yung denominator natin magiging interest expense na 80 plus the principal payment of 500. Okay, so let me flash now yung EBITDA coverage computation ko. Okay, again, 2018 guys, wala tayong sinasum, interest expense lang to. So what did I do here sa numerator? This is the EBIT plus the depreciation and amortization. Okay? So inad ko lang guys yung EBIT at saka depreciation and amortization to get the EBITDA. Divided by, sabi ng formula, interest plus principal plus lease. Wala tayong principal, wala principal payments, wala tayong lease payments. So interest lang matitira. So, C11 yun. Okay, you have 3.65. Ibig sabihin dito, for every 1 peso of EBITDA, no? Kaya natin inad yung depreciation and amortization kasi hindi naman cash expense yan. No? Okay, so meron tayong 3.65 na EBITDA in order to cover interest, principal, at saka lease. Okay, but since wala namang principal at saka lease payments, so interest lang yan. Okay, come 2019, ano nangyari? Again, kinapi ko lang actually dun sa first and second. So this is EBIT plus depreciation and amortization divided by may principal payments ba tayo? Wala. Okay, interest payment lang tayo dito. Okay, and lastly guys dito, ano nangyari dito? Now, this is now different, no? So our numerator is EBITDA, EBIT plus DA, and then, ano nga yung denominator natin? May interest tayo, at saka may principal payment tayo. So that's D32, which is the 1 million, minus E32, which is the 500. Take a look at this, guys. Ilan yan? Oops, sorry. Mali. Ilan to? Ito yung 500,000. Yung binayad natin na principal. Okay. C11, ano to? Ito yung interest payment natin na 80,000. Okay. So, what do we have here? We have here an EBITDA coverage of 1.07. Compare it to our competitor na talagang covered yung interest, principal, and lease na 8 pesos. No? Tayo we perform less, no? Less. Poorly relative to our competitor. And ito, mas ano tayo, no? Mas capable tayo ng 2018. Talagang bumagsak tayo ng 2019. Naka-recover ng konti sa 2019, 2020, pero barely lang, guys. No? Piso lang ang EBITDA coverage natin. Piso yung EBITDA na available natin to service interest, principal, at saka lease. Although wala naman tayong lease. Okay, pause ako, guys. Any questions? Any clarifications? Dito usually maraming questions sa EBITDA coverage. Any clarifications, guys? Sa EBITDA coverage, sa TI, at saka sa debt ratio? Don't be ashamed, guys. Walang questions? Okay, let me reverse my question. Clear ba so far, guys? Clear yung debt ratios natin? Okay, I'm waiting for the response of I hope everyone responds, guys. Kung clear so far yung discussion natin sa debt ratio. Okay, only 4 responses so far. Okay, how about the rest, guys? Hoping to get more responses from your end, guys. I'll wait a few more minutes para for you to answer that query kung so far ba clear yung discussion natin ng debt ratio. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your response. This is much appreciated. Okay, wala nang questions sa sa EBITDA. Yung TAI, guys, madali lang naman, EBIT over interest expense. Ito lang yung medyo nakakalito yung EBITDA coverage. Again, guys, tandaan natin ang denominator dito, interest, principal at saka lease. Kung may binigay na lease, guys, idadagdag natin 'yon, no? Isasama din natin 'yan sa EBIT sa numerator at saka sa denominator. So dito wala namang binigay na lease. Okay? So ang titingnan na lang natin yung ito na lang magiging problema natin yung principal. So kailan magmamatter yan, guys? Dun sa time na bumaba yung principal, ibig sabihin kasi nagbayad ng principal. So again, 2018, hindi natin pwede makonclude yan kasi wala naman tayong 2017 na figure. 2019, tumaas yung long-term debt. So ibig sabihin ng tumaas, nangutang pa. So ang assumption natin diyan, walang principal payments. 2020 bumaba. Bumaba yung long-term debt natin. So ibig sabihin nag-service tayo nagbayad tayo ng principal na 500. So isasama natin yung binayad na principal dito sa formula dito sa EBITDA coverage natin, yung plus principal. Okay? All right, we now go to profitability ratios. Na medyo madali lang to na I think some of this na discuss natin before. Okay, so let's go here. So ano to mga profitability ratios na to? If you take a look, guys, EBIT over sales. So these are both income statements. So wala tayong ina-average dito, no? So ito yung operating margin natin. Magkanong operating margin ang nakukuha natin sa bawat sales? So dito, 2018, 6 centavos lang operating margin natin. Okay, in fact, nung 2019 nga, zero na no? Of course, rounded to the nearest two decimal places. Okay? So that's 0.3 centavos. 0.3 na lang. Ito 6 centavos. Ito 0.3 centavos. Ito 7 centavos. Okay, and we pale in comparison, guys, to our direct competitor. Sila 9 cents sila to a peso of sales. Tayo 7 centavos lang. Lalo na 2017 at 2019, this is really where the company really performed very poorly. Mataas masyado yung cost ratio nila. Okay, ano naman yung profit margin? Ito na yung bottom line, guys. No? Net income after tax. No? So tayo, 3 centavos per peso of sales. Ito, net loss na to kaya negative. Nag-improve noong 2020, we were raking in 4 centavos per profit per peso of sales. However, again, our competitor is performing better than us. 6 centavos. Okay. Next, guys, is yung BEP natin, basic earning power. Yung formula na to is your EBIT divided by, now again, guys, since this is income statement at saka this is balance sheet, yung balance sheet, kunin natin yung average. Ito total assets, ganun din dito. Average total assets and total equity. So, ganun ang gagawin natin, guys, pag kumukuha tayo ng ratios na yung isa income statement, yung isa balance sheet, i-average natin yung balance sheet account. Okay, basic earning power, just to show you the formula, it's EBIT C10 divided by the average of my total asset, B25 C25. Okay, sabi natin kahit na walang 2017, okay lang kunin yung average. Babasahin lang ni Excel as nothing, no? Okay? So here we can see that over time, dito talaga sa 2019 yung problematic year ng company, yung basic earning power niya, yung its ability to generate EBIT per average na total asset, no? Bumaba talaga. So dito ang hindi siya makapag-generate ng operating margin, no? Okay, per every peso of total assets. Okay, so we again fail in comparison relative to our competitors. Sila 0.18 yung ano nila, tayo 0.16. So again guys, yung mga bagay-bagay na to, these things that we're performing less compared to our competitor, that requires management to really ask the question why. Bakit? In order for them to see either what they're doing wrong or what their competitor is doing right, no? Much better than them. Okay, so ganun din yung return on assets, guys. Return on assets is the bottom line, yung net income na na-generate natin for every peso of total assets. So ito, 6 centavos profit per peso of total assets. So related to dalawang to, no? Kasi ito parehong total assets yung tinitingnan natin dito as a comparator. Ito si EBIT, ito si net income. Of course, we expect this to be lower. Gawin nga natin ano lang to. Decimal na lang din para pare-pareho sila. Okay, so return on equity 6%, 6.06, which means 6 centavos for every peso of asset. Ito naman, return on equity, pareho numerator niya sa ROA, pero iba lang yung equity. So for every peso of investment by shareholders, yung equity, it generates 0.13 profit. Negative noong 2019 kasi negative yung net income after tax at saka ito. Okay? This is, nag-improve siya noong 2020. In fact, yung ROE ng company natin is better than much better than yung format mo nga ito. Para pareho. Better than the competitor. No? 0.18 lang sa competitor, tayo 0.20. So which means we're generating more profit for every peso of investment by the company, no? By the competitor, by the shareholders. Okay. Any questions, guys? Oops. Yeah. Any questions dito sa sa earnings per share? Hindi pa pala. Dito sa ROE. Okay, let's go to EPS, earnings per share. Okay, ano naman yung earnings per share, guys? As the name suggests, earnings, which is net income after tax, divided by average number of shares. So hindi natin pwede makuha yung sa 2018 kasi wala tayong shares noong 2018. Okay, so hindi natin pwede may average to at saka ito. Mag-error tayo dito. So ang pwede natin makompute yung EPS ng 2019 kasi pwede natin, kahit wala dito sa 2018, pwede naman natin i-average to. Tapos ito din, pwede natin i-average to. Okay? So EPS, we're computing for the net income after tax divided by the average number of shares. Alright, so sa 2019, since yung net income natin yan is negative, so magna-negative talaga tayo dito. No? Average of C40, which is the number of shares, and D40. Ito yan. Yan, average nito. Okay, so EPS natin, since negative yung yung net income natin dito, earnings per share natin nung 2019 will be negative. Ibig sabihin, naglo-lose ng almost 10 cent, almost 1 peso, no? Per 1 share. Yung isang share naglo-lose ng value ng 95 centavos. So palpak yung 2019 natin, pero naka-recover ng 2020. Ibig sabihin, per 1.45 pesos ang kinikita per share ng investor. But it fails in comparison with with our direct competitor, which is earning 1.85 per share. No? Okay, so that's your EPS, earnings per share. Andito naman guys yung always be guided by the formula. That's why I place it already here for our guidance. All right, then we have may dalawang ano tayo dito guys, may dalawang ano pa rin, profitability ratios, pero medyo naiiba siya. No? Ang tawag dito guys sa dalawang to, price per earnings ratio, also called PER. Others call this the PER, price per earnings ratio. At saka ito yung price to cash flow. These are called, okay, I'm going to share this worksheet with you. Ang tawag sa kanya, price multiples. No? Okay, so I have here a site which you can look at. So ang tawag sa kanya, price multiples, kasi ang tinitingnan sa kanya, it's always compared to the price, no? Yung market value. So price per EPS, price per cash flow, etc. So how expensive, okay, is the stock price of the company is? Or is it overvalued or undervalued? Yun ang sinasagot ng ng price multiples ratio. Now, because we don't have time, guys, I will andito guys yung andito yung another reference for this. Pwede niyong basahin. Well, hindi pala pwede. You have to read that, guys, kasi I might ask questions from that in the exams. So, sandali. Ilagay ko lang sa chat, pero isi-share ko naman sa inyo yung Excel file. Okay, so this is the reference. Marami pang ibang reference, no? Ano, wala. Okay. Okay, so tingnan muna natin tong PER at saka yung price to cash flow. Ang formula, price per share, okay? Or share price lang yan. Pareho lang yung ano dito, ha? So ipareho ko na lang para hindi tayo malito, no? Control C. I'm going to share price. Ay. Okay, share price over EPS. Okay, share price over operating cash flow per share. Okay, so sa una guys, tinitingnan natin kung how expensive is the stock price is. Kasi ang sinasabi nito, magkano yung kailangan nating pag bibili natin stock na to, magkano yung price niya per earnings na makukuha natin per one share. Okay? So dito, guys, yung mga price multiples na to, it doesn't make sense, no? It doesn't make sense pag negative yung denominator natin. Okay? So kasi yung price niya, guys, hindi pwedeng maging denominator, hindi pwedeng maging negative yan. So the numerator will always be positive. So ang pwede lang maging negative yung yung denominator in these two formulas, no? Okay? Only the denominator can be negative because the share price, the market price, will always be positive. And then, so pag negative yung denominator, guys, hindi natin ina-analyze kasi it doesn't make sense. Kasi wala namang price na negative eh. Okay, so katulad nito, no? I'm going to show you how this was computed. Walang negative na price. So assuming, guys, this is positive, assume lang natin na positive tong 6.31. So paano mo natin na-compute to? It's the price. Magkano ba yung price ng 2019? It's 6, di ba? 6 divided by the EPS. Divided by the EPS, the earnings per share. Okay? So ano ibig sabihin to? Assume ko lang na positive, but it's really negative, so we can't really interpret this. Hindi natin magagamit sa interpretation to. So assuming it's positive, ibig sabihin to, we should be willing to buy the stock at 6.31 per share and get 1 peso na EPS. So yung natin, yung 1 share natin, mag-earn siya ng 1 peso, pero bibili natin yung stock at 6.31. Okay? So is that high or low? Well, once again, guys, i-compare natin. Noong 2020, it was 8.4. So tumaas yung price, no? Tumaas yung value nito. Ibig sabihin, we have to spend 8.4 to buy a stock that will give us an earning of 1 peso per share. So 8.40 ang price ng bawat share of stock. Ang makukuha natin 1 peso earnings per share. So nakikita natin, guys, the higher the PER ratio is, the more expensive it is. If you take a look at the PER of companies, yung mga blue chips, usually matataas yun, ano? Okay, matataas siya, ibig sabihin, medyo expensive na siya. So you expect to get a earnings of 1 peso per share, pero you will have to pay it at the PER, no? Itong 8.4. Pero in fact, si competitor natin mas expensive pa. No? Kasi ang kino-compare natin, bawat isa sa kanila magbibigay ng earnings, no? 1 peso earnings per share. Okay, ang price ni company natin 8.4. 8.4, and then it will on the average give us 1 peso earning, no? Si competitor naman 9.5 ang price niya sa 1 peso per earning. So mas expensive si competitor. So the higher the PER, guys, that means it's really more more expensive. Okay, so guys, I leave you to read yung binigay ko kanina because you'll get more insights for that. Okay, so we have a few more, guys. Ito naman, price per cash flow. So ito, kailangan natin ma-compute yung operating cash flow natin dun sa cash flow statement. So, pinakita na natin to last time. Ito yung 2020, kinapi ko lang yung working paper natin. Di ba we did this? I asked you to do this. So for 2020, yung operating cash flow natin is 175.36. So this is negative, guys. So technically, hindi natin pwede ma-interpret yung price to cash flow nito kasi negative to eh. But let's just assume, no? And then for 2020, guys, here, okay, so quick lang ginawa ko yung cash flow statement dito. Okay, so yung difference ng cash, negative 1718. So that should appear here. Negative 1718. So okay to, I will not explain this anymore. You know how to do this, guys. So, and then yung net income, and then depreciation, etc. Tapos, ito yung net operating cash flow, no? Ito, cash flow from operations. So, 170 at saka 503. So, kinapi ko lang dito yan. Ito, 503. Then 170. Okay, then we divided by the number of shares. Noong 2019, number of shares is, excuse me, 100,000. And then ito, 250. No? 250. So, ang operating cash flow natin per share is dinivide ko lang. No? So, the operating cash flow divided by the number of shares. Okay, so that's the operating cash flow per share. And then, so to compute for the price per cash flow, okay, kukunin natin yung ratio ng price divided by yung operating cash flow per share. Yan. Okay, and then copy this to the right. Okay, so this one, guys, we cannot interpret kasi negative sila. So itong price multiples, guys, sabi natin, na-interpret lang natin yan kung positive yung values. Okay, again, assume, guys, na assume natin na na positive, no? Ano ibig sabihin ng 17.84? Ang ibig sabihin niyan, para makakuha tayo ng isang peso, 1 peso of operating cash flow per share, we have to pay 17.84 pesos. Okay, kasi yung numerator, denominator niya, guys, yan yung makukuha natin. So operating cash flow na piso, okay, kasi yan ang denominator natin, 17.84 over 1 means piso na operating cash flow per share. Tapos magkano yung price niya? 17.84. If that's the case, guys, then tumaas yung value niya, no? 1.19 versus 17.84. Tumaas yung price niya. Mas naging mahal siya noong 2020 relative to 2019. Again, guys, ang assuming ko dito, positive to. Okay? Kasi it doesn't make sense again to interpret this if it's negative. But I'm just interpreting it just so that if you, sa paper nyo, positive yung ano, alam nyo i-interpret. So relative to the competitor, mahal yung stock natin. Kasi dito magbibigay si competitor ng 1 peso na operating cash flow at 7.6 yung price. Ito naman 1 peso na operating cash flow per share pero ang price niya 17.84. Okay? So but then again, ang caveat ko guys, I was assuming that these are positive. Okay, pause muna ako. Any questions, guys? Ito. I'm sorry, guys. I have to do this in this quick fashion. Anyway, you can go back to this. I'm going to post this and then the file, yung recording natin, for your review para sa quiz natin on Tuesday. No? So please be here on 7:30. Synchronous yung exam natin. No? All right. So last yung market value ratios natin. So ito simple lang. So market book value per share. So kukunin lang natin yung total equity divided by the number of shares. Okay? So formula lang natin dito. Total equity, this is your total equity divided by the number of shares. Okay, 5.6, 11.3, 13.6. Book value, okay, divided by the number of shares. Okay, so this is called book value per share. Okay, so ito, ibig sabihin ito, magkano yung value ng equity natin per 1 share. Okay, so the higher the book value per share, the better. So ito, 5.6, nag-increase siya. It became better noong 2020. Pero it still pales in comparison relative to our competitor. Kasi yung 1 share sa competitor natin, ang value ng equity niya is 13.6. Tayo 11.3 lang. However, it improved relative to 2019. Okay? So, ito naman guys, ito naman, it's your, kino-compare natin ngayon yung book value per share at saka yung market value. Again, paano natin makukuha yung market value? D39, okay? Ito yung market value per share. Ibig sabihin nun, yung share price. No? So that's 6 pesos. So 6 pesos market value divided by book value, which is ito, yung 5.6. Okay? So, again, yung 6, yung market value natin, 6 divided by 5.6. So, ibig sabihin, mas mataas yung market value natin kaysa sa book value, 1.08. Which is good, guys. The higher the market to book value, the better. However, guys, talo tayo ng competitor natin kasi sila, yung market value nila mas mataas over the book value by 2.9. Tayo 1.08 lang. So not much difference, no change in 2019 and 2020. Okay, questions guys on market value? Okay. Again, let me rephrase my question. Clear ba so far? Clear so far tong ano natin, tong market value ratios? Okay, chat please, kung clear so far. Or kung clear na, is it okay for me to proceed to the last two portions of our ratios? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, salamat guys. Thank you. I appreciate your response. All right. This brings us to the last guys, itong DuPont at saka Altman Z. Okay, first DuPont. Si DuPont, born out of the fact that in the early 1900s, ang ano talaga, ang pinaka-basis ng measurement ng performance is ROE. Ito talaga yung tinitingnan nila, si ROE, return on equity. Okay, so sabi natin, si ROE, return on equity, is just your net income after tax over the average total equity. Guys, may mga in-adjust ako dito na formulas. So, yung mga balance sheet accounts, linagyan ko ng average just to be consistent with our formulas. So, what we're going to do with this, sabi ng DuPont, since ROE yung pinaka-measure, kailangan tingnan pa natin to. How do we improve ROE? Okay, so this led to what we call the DuPont three-way analysis. Okay, sandali. Okay. Okay. So it led to the DuPont. DuPont is a company, guys, chemical company sa US. Three-way analysis. Bakit three-way analysis? Kasi dinicompose nila yung ROE into three measures. So ito ROE, di ba? Which is equal to net income after tax over average total equity. Kaya return on equity. Ayun yung equity. Okay, if we multiply this by sales over sales and average total assets by average total assets, it will not change the value of the ROE. Kasi 1 lang naman to, times 1 times 1. And then we rearrange the position. Okay, ginawa natin net income after tax over sales. So si sales na punta dito. Si average total assets na punta dito. Si average total equity na punta dito. So what happened now is, sabi nga ni DuPont, so ROE is just the same as profit margin times Pareto times the financial leverage multiplier or equity multiplier. Okay, so ang formula nila, net income after tax over sales. Diba? That's profit margin. Sales over total assets, that's Pareto. And ito hindi ba natin nagamit to? yung financial leverage multiplier, which is average total assets over average total equity. Okay. So ang sabi ni DuPont, in order to improve ROE, kailangan natin tingnan tong tatlong to. We have to look at these three measures. Kailangan ma-increase tong mga measure na to para mag-increase yung ROE. So yung pinaka-logic nitong DuPont analysis, guys. Now, meron pang ano yan, meron pang five-way analysis. Ibig sabihin, broken down into 5 measures. But we'll just discuss yung three-way analysis. So, sabi ni DuPont, how can we improve ROE? To improve ROE, you have to improve profit margin, Pareto, and also increase your equity multiplier or financial leverage multiplier. Okay, so here I'm showing you dito. So, si ROE natin, nakuha natin sa taas yan. So, kinapi ko lang sa taas. So, here, this is ROE. Return on equity, this one. I just copied this from the above. Okay, and then profit margin, guys, kinopya rin natin sa taas to. Profit margin, you have profit margin here. Where's profit margin? It's here. Ito. Yan. So, and then total asset turnover, kinopya din natin sa taas dito. Okay, so everything is already here, guys, except yung financial leverage multiplier. Total asset turnover is here, this one. Tato. And then, ito. Okay, so this is your equity multiplier or financial leverage multiplier. Ito yung hindi pa natin na-solve, which is just your average total assets over average total equity. So, sinasabi ni DuPont na pag pinataas natin si PM si Tato at saka si equity multiplier, tataas yung ROE. It makes sense kasi multiplication yan. No? Okay, so I just copy this to the right. Okay. All right, then multiply ko lang. No? Profit margin times Tato times equity multiplier. You have your ROE, and which is the same. So I got the same ROE. Broken down lang into this one. Okay, broken down into this three. Of course, guys, yung negative dito, pangit yan, ha? Pangit yung negative ROE. No? Ibig sabihin, negative yung return, profit per 1 peso of equity. All right, so that's yung DuPont, guys. Yun lang yun. Guys, it's already time. May I have 2 minutes just to quickly discuss this? Okay lang ba, guys, please? Kung pwede. Time na pala, 9 o'clock na. I just need 2 minutes just to finish this. Okay, salamat. Salamat. No? Okay, so itong Altman Z, okay, andi dito guys yung andi dito yung yung references. Okay, ang sinasabi lang ni Altman Z, i-compute natin yung Z value. If the Z value falls between 0 and 1.8, ibig sabihin, in the next 2 years, pwede maging bankrupt na yung company. If it's between 1.8 and 3, it means that gray zone yan. Pwedeng mabankrupt, pwedeng hindi. But if it's greater than 3, then safe zone si si company. Okay, so here, okay, so we just follow here the ratios. So ito, no, net working capital over total assets. So we can compute for 2019. Net working capital is simply your current assets minus your current liabilities over your total assets. Then ito, retained earnings over total assets. EBIT divided by total assets. Market value of equity. Ano may market value of equity natin? Share price multiplied by the number of shares. Divided by total liabilities, which is just the sum of your total current liabilities and then your total long-term liabilities. Yan. And then sales over total assets. Okay. In other words, guys, lahat ng mga ratios na to available. It can easily be computed. Pati din dito, kinapin na lang natin sa 2020 yan. So what do we do, guys? Ito yung factors. 1.2, 1.4, 3.3, 0.6, 1.0. Imo-multiply natin yan sa ratios natin. So here we can use the function sum product, no? Sum product of your factor and then your D. And then if you fix natin tong column C para makopy natin to the right yung answer. So it will be 1.2 times 0.214 plus 1.4 times 0.03, 3.3 times 0.06 plus 0.6 times this plus 1 times 2.0. So i-multiply niya bawat isa tapos i-add niya. Ang tawag doon sum product. Okay, copy to the right. Okay, sum product din ng mali. Mali yung formula ko. It should be, it should be C dapat, C. C. Okay, sorry about that. So, naka-fix si C. All right. So noong 2019, guys, ano nangyari? Nasa gray zone si 2.5 siya, no? Si XYZ company, no? So medyo alanganin siya. No? We cannot say na safe siya. We cannot say din na magiging bankrupt siya. So nasa gray zone siya. Pero noong 2020, it's good that it was able to recover 4.335. So andito siya, nasa safe zone siya. Okay yung performance siya ng 2020. No chance, ang probability na magiging bankrupt siya is practically none. Pero ito, guys, there was a possibility, no? Though hindi tayo sure, no? Kasi dito, malaking probability kung magiging bankrupt siya. Okay, so this is the Altman Z and it's being used, no? So this is for prediction purposes. may inano akong references dito for your use. Okay, so with that, guys, thank you so much. This ends the discussion of this worksheet. I'm going to send this to you. So kindly review this for coverage ng exams natin. So Thursday will be modules 1 and modules 2. Okay, so Once again, guys, maraming salamat. Thank you so much. For those of you who have questions, you may remain. But okay, I'll stop recording now.